Good evening, and welcome to Raising Jessica, a story of hope, written by our guest speaker, Vicki Rubin. My name is Robin Raphael, and I am the chair of the Center for Jewish Engagement and Learning, the Belonging Initiative. Tonight's gathering is part of Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Month. For more information about all of the great programs that are taking place this month, visit www.jewishtogether.org/JDAM. During this month, as well as throughout the year, we want to invite you to partner with the Center for Jewish Engagement and Learning to make our belonging vision a reality for all Jews, their friends and life partners of other faiths, and people exploring Judaism to feel welcome to participate in Jewish living and learning experiences to the extent of their abilities and interest, and to find a space of belonging in Jewish Buffalo, regardless of race, gender identity, sexual orientation, or ability. Without further ado, let's welcome Vicki.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you to the Federation for having me. Jessica was supposed to be on the presentation right now with me, but it looks like they're having some technical difficulties, so maybe she'll be on after. I'm so happy that all of you are here. I know many of you, and thank you for being here. Yes, it's another Zoom. About a year ago, before the pandemic, Zoom meant, going fast. A lot of people talked about Zoom with my dog's race around. But right now, even though Zoom can sometimes be really annoying, it is really a great, crucial connection during the pandemic. So let me tell you a little bit about what tonight's going to be about, and then we'll move on. The whole presentation will be less than 45 minutes. I'm one of the people who sits in the back of the car and says, are we there yet? So for those of you who need to know how long is everything, about 40 minutes. At first, we're going to talk a little bit about our family. I have two excerpts from the book. We're going to talk about the Jewish group home. It's the first Jewish group home in Buffalo where Jessica lives. We're going to talk about the connection of the families in the group home, and also the connection of the Jewish community with Jessica's group home, and how all together it is supportive. We're all supported. So this slide, I'm going to go a little bit back. I'm going to zoom from 1979 to 2020. So I went to the University of Miami in Florida, and the first week of second semester, I met this long-haired dude named Mitch. And Mitch and I started going out, and we went out all 4 years. And he graduated in December, 6 months before me. And my degree was elementary education. I was going to be a teacher. And I remember at one point, a professor came up to me and said, are you interested in special ed? And I thought, I don't think I have the patience for special ed. Well, we all know that that wasn't true, but I didn't know it back in 1979. So anyway, Mitch graduates, and in February, he comes back to Miami to visit. And he takes me to a restaurant, and we hadn't seen each other in a couple of months, and he's acting really edgy, and he is not talking that much. And I'm thinking, maybe things have changed. I don't know what's going on between us. And he all of a sudden pops the question, and he says, before you answer, there's two conditions. One, if you say no, I'm going to, you have to drive me back to the airport. And two, I have to have, and I need to get this exact writing, hassle-free annual fishing trip. I had to make a vow about that. Problem is, I probably made the vow. I don't think I ever kept that vow. So the story is, I graduated. He schlepped me from Buffalo, from Miami to Buffalo. And at the beginning, it wasn't so easy. but that, was 1979, and Buffalo was a little different in 1979. But now it is the best move we ever could have made. This community is by far the most embracing, inclusive community, and I'm so glad that I'm part of this community. Okay. Next slide. So a little bit about our family. This is a Florida trip in 1992. We have 3 kids. Jessica is our eldest, and she has multiple and complex disabilities. Alex, who is on top of Mitch's head, is our middle, and Carly is our baby. Jessica is the subject of the book, obviously, Raising Jess, A Story of Hope. We have 3 grandchildren, 2 dogs. Everybody is local. The next photo is a photo from Lou Gehrig. We participated in baseball, soccer, and we had a lot of challenges. It was challenging to get everywhere we needed to go. Jessica needed assistance with all daily needs. And so traveling and going to different events always took longer, but we always had a family motto: we will do everything, it will just take longer. And so here we are at Lou Gehrig Baseball. The next slide is, this was the actual first article that I think I ever had published. It was 1987. And this was about our dog named Tracy, who was a wonderful friend to Jessica and our family, and was really almost like this natural therapy dog. The reason that I have the picture in here is also just to show you this is what the kids look like, and as they were growing up. The next slide shows a little bit of, sometimes it felt like we were having triplets. This is me trying to brush their teeth. If you see, I have 1 toothbrush that's right in my mouth. It's probably Carly's because she was going to be next. At this point, I had 1 child who couldn't walk, 1 who wouldn't walk, and 1 who never wanted to stop walking. So everywhere we went, it was almost a little bit like a zoo, and just trying to keep up with everyone, trying to encourage people to walk. This was, every day was a little bit challenging, as I said before, but we got through it. So the next slide shows you where we are now. And Jessica was a bridesmaid in both her siblings' wedding. On the left, we have my daughter-in-law, Joyce, and Jessica is a bridesmaid, and my daughter, Carly. And to the right is Carly and Steve's wedding. And then on the bottom is Alex and Joyce. And the next slide is going to show you the nephews. We have Jessica's nephews and nieces. Now, her nephews have been in her home. And all the ladies who were in the home really loved going and visiting Jessica and her housemates. The middle picture is of Noah, our youngest grandchild, and they moved here during the pandemic. So this is about as close as she's gotten to Jess. They have not really been able to interact yet, but we hope that all of that will change soon. And these are our other siblings. We have Gus, who's a Vizsla, and Daniel, who's an Italian Greyhound. We did notice that when Daniel visited Jessica's house, he was extremely friendly and interactive, and so he became a therapy dog. And so Daniel goes to senior centers and schools, but at this point, we're not going anywhere because of the pandemic. And the masks were photoshopped. Okay, so what did I do before retiring? Act 1. So I did eventually get that master's in special education in 2001. And I did that because I wanted to be able to advocate for Jess. And I wanted to just be able to get all the knowledge that I can get. I became the director of the Early Childhood Direction Center, which is was a state-funded network. There were 14 centers in New York State and Western New York. My department covered 6 counties, and we were administered by Women and Children's Hospital of Buffalo. What we did was we provided information and referral for families of children birth to 5 who had disabilities. And then we also worked with the professionals. And as a parent, I was able to talk to families, not only understanding the regulations, but also as a parent and having gone through a lot of the situations that many of the callers that we went through. And then in 2016, I retired. And then I did a big, now what? And so I guess what really happened was that was Act 1. And the next part is Act 2. This is my mom, and she passed away a year ago, February 6th. Diane Schleinger, and you can see I am wearing the necklace that she's wearing today. Mom always said to me, you should write a book. And my reply to Mom was, I've got 3 kids. Jessica has a lot of needs. I'm working. I don't have time to write a book. And it was always very frustrating to me that she was saying you should write a book. And then I graduated. I didn't graduate. I did graduate. I retired. And as a gift, Alex and Joyce, my daughter-in-law and son, bought me a thesaurus, a dictionary, a pad, all the old school writing stuff. I believe they even bought me a pen, and they said, write your book. And I became very overwhelmed because I knew that I wanted to write about Jessica, but I had and still have boxes and boxes of information and pictures and schedules. And I was like, how can I make this into a book? This could be a textbook. I didn't want to write a textbook. And then Carly, who was getting her doctorate in physical therapy, gave me a book that she had to read for school. It was a memoir called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And the author was Jean-Dominique Bauby. He was a French author. He was also the editor of Elle, the French magazine, and he was a journalist. And he was this gregarious, active, wonderful guy. And in the blink of an eye, he became paralyzed. And he could no longer move any parts of his body. And he wrote this memoir in essays by blinking his eye every time that's how he spelled. So if he wanted to spell the word and, he would go like that for A. And then the person who was with him had to go through the alphabet until they got to N, and then he would blink N. So he wrote the whole book doing that. And his book was really inspiring. But what also I saw is that, I don't have to write a textbook. I can write a book in essays. And that's how I like to write. So that really gave me the push to, okay, I think I can do this. So after I retired and made this decision, I started writing every single morning. And a lot of my friends who call me in the morning and I always go, I'm writing, will know that every morning I was at that computer, and I did that for 3 years until I came up with the book, Raising Jess, A Story of Hope. So now I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book. This is chapter 1. It's about 6 minutes, and it talks about Jessica's birth. And while I'm reading this, Mike is going to go through to slide 15 and just show you some pictures. So chapter 1, Our Esther Bunny. On April 11th, 1982, Easter Sunday, I was 24 years old and had the chicken pox. And I was about to deliver my first child. For a week, I had complained to my doctor about a rash, and for a week he had said, "Oh, the baby's settling, don't worry, but just put some lotion on it. It must be dry skin." I was naive, pregnant, unaware, and truly wanted to believe it was nothing. And then my water broke. We arrived at the local hospital, and as I told a few doctors about my rash, each dismissed it as an unimportant until finally an astute nurse, probably an experienced mom, said to me that my rash looked like chickenpox. My mind went into overdrive, racing with anxious thoughts. How could this be? I was in labor and I was 24 years old. Didn't I already have all my childhood diseases? They called in other doctors to confirm the suspected diagnosis. And since nobody was sure, a physician ordered a biopsy of my rash to confirm that I indeed had chickenpox. I clearly remember a labor pain and the scalpel removing the pox happening simultaneously. Welcome to motherhood. Once the chickenpox diagnosis was confirmed, the local hospital had trouble dealing with this ridiculous news. My husband, Mitch, had the misfortune of a new resident telling him that it was unlikely the baby and I would survive the birth and delivery. He actually said that. Perhaps in the late 1970s and early 80s, medical schools didn't include the class on how to talk to patients and families. Perhaps the resident was overwhelmed with chickenpox, labor, and a frantic mom-to-be that he just blurted out what he was thinking rather than considering what he should say. I wonder if he's still in medicine and if he ever thinks of that incident from Easter Sunday in 1982. Mitch contacted my parents who were in Florida and were unable to fly to Buffalo on such short notice on Easter Sunday. They would have to wait until Monday. My in-laws were at a hospital with us praying for a positive outcome. The attending doctor decided that I should be moved to Buffalo's Children's Hospital, which is now Oishei Children's Hospital. One would assume that I would be transported by ambulance, but Mitch drove the 25-minute route with me laboring beside him. My labor was at the beginning stages, and since it was my first child, I believe the doctors at the first hospital thought I was not in danger of giving birth on the road. In today's litigious world, I think they would not have taken that chance. Meanwhile, my father-in-law was sent on a mission to get what we were told was the last vial of varicella zoster vaccine. This is for chickenpox, to administer to the baby as soon as she was born. The problem was that on Easter, the only pharmacy that had this drug was Roswell Park Cancer Hospital, and they were closing within the hour. We were told it was the only place to get it in the city. Again, it's hard to believe that in 1982, the hospital would send my father-in-law to pick up crucial medication. What if something happened to his car, or he dropped the medication and it shattered, or he encountered any number of random acts of delay? Buffalo was not a rural town in the 1980s, but the way this day was unfolding, one would think we lived in Mayberry, which is a small town in the 1960s sitcom for you millennials who don't know it. Mitch and I arrived safely at Buffalo Children's Hospital, and to our surprise, the medical staff was not alarmed about my circumstances. They admitted me into an isolation room so as not to spread chickenpox in the labor and delivery unit or among fellow newborns. My father-in-law was able to get the medicine while I labored for 8 more uncomfortable hours at the hospital. And there are some other slides that you can scroll through. Jessica was born on April 11th, 1982 at 8:15 p.m. And our friend Jackie promptly dubbed her our Esther Bunny, her nickname for a Jewish baby born on Easter. Jessica did not have chickenpox and was immediately administered the drug my father-in-law had fetched from the cancer hospital. Jess was taken to the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU, for monitoring. And since this was 1982, I was unable to see my firstborn child. And what you see on the screen is Mitch holding Jessica in the NICU. You know, back in 1982, there was no cell phone, FaceTime, texting, Facebook, Instagram, Zoom, nothing. The 1982 version of instant photos was a Polaroid camera. Mitch bought a camera and showered me with photos of our newborn. However, I was desperate to hold Jessica in person. My mom hormones were screaming to hold my newborn while the physicians reminded me that I was still contagious. I was released from the hospital within 36 hours, but was unable to see our baby or bring her home until a pediatrician in the community declared that I was chickenpox free. In hindsight, I question why I wasn't referred to an infectious disease specialist at the hospital, or perhaps a dermatologist, as it was skin related, but what do I know? Fortunately, I found a pediatrician who cleared me and sent me on my way home to motherhood. Next slide, please. Jessica weighed less than 5 pounds when she was born, although she was not delivered early. In retrospect, it was obvious that Jess had unusual facial features and other anomalies, but as first-time parents, we were somewhat clueless, and the doctors didn't say anything to us. We had a baby nurse who had been in the profession for over 30 years and who assisted us for the first month. She said that Jess was the tiniest baby she had ever cared for, but she didn't remark on any other differences. As the months passed, the pediatrician continued to assure us that Jess was developing normally, and I continued to question all her delays. Interestingly, in re-examination, an inexperienced mom like me knew more about her child than the experienced physician. I recently came across a letter written by my father that applauds Mitch's and my ability to manage the difficult birth and circumstances. He concluded in his letter that this was just a brief hiccup of a start, and that he looked forward to seeing Jessica develop into a wonderful daughter whom we could be proud of as he was of me. Jessica has developed into a wonderful daughter, and we have much pride, but her story is very different from mine. Little did we know that chickenpox was the least of our worries. Next slide, please. So that's Jessica on her first birthday, and now I want to catch up on my slides. So give me a second. Next slide, we're just going to quickly go through some of these, and these are some milestones. Jessica was able to walk in a walker. She has more trouble now at the age of 38, but she was able to stand and move in a few, different directions. The next slide is Jessica receiving an award. She was fully included at High Middle School. This is her communicating with a Dynavox, which was a voice output computer. She was the first student at High Middle School who was in a wheelchair and needed the type of assistance that she needed to go to middle school. The next slide is a highlight in all of our lives, and Jessica was bat mitzvahed in 1996. Rabbi Barry Schwartz was at Temple Sinai, and he inspired us with a sermon. It was about a young man who had autism, and he had his bar mitzvah, and he did the whole bar mitzvah through music because that's how he related. And Mitch and I believe when the rabbi gave that sermon that he was also talking to us because Jessica communicates through music. And so we met with the rabbi, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing something that was meaningful. And he explained to us that having a bat mitzvah doesn't necessarily mean reading the Torah or doing certain prayers, but more so it is embracing your religion and becoming an adult in religion to the best of your ability. And we knew that Jessica could do this through music. So we taped the Shema on the Dynavox, which was an important prayer for Jessica to say, and she was able to isolate her finger, and she did say was able to record the prayer on her own. Carly, her sister, sang many of the Hebrew prayers, and Alex wrote a song for Jessica, and he sang it out loud. Maybe one day I'll get him to sing the song for everybody. Cantor, the late cantor Susan Morelli, also sang to Jess. And of course, we had an Oneg Shabbat that was chocolate because that was a party after, because Jessica and our whole family loved chocolate. The next slide is graduation, and Jessica, if you see on the right, is me and Jessica walking the aisle. The next slide is a 21st birthday, and where does everyone celebrate their 21st birthday? At the bar, and this is Jessica with her dad at the bar. Jessica also went to the prom twice. She was legitimately asked twice to the prom, and that's Jessica with her prom date, Josh, who is still her friend now. Next slide is some family pictures. And then we have a family picture at a Can Jam tournament that was Jessica's, Mitch's business, and we help support that every year with Mitch. And then the next one is Jess at 32. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Jewish group home and read another excerpt. This is a picture of Jessica and her friend's house, and I truly wish they could have been on the Zoom with us so you could have met Jessica and her housemates. Our first meeting was in 2004, and Janet Gunner and a community rabbi called together interested families who had individuals, Jewish families who had individuals with disabilities. We had human service agencies, we had People Inc., we had the state, and we met for the first time, as I said, in 2004. This meeting inspired the beginning of the first group home. One of the benefits of this, we weren't even sure at the beginning if Jessica was we were ready for Jessica to move into a group home. But what we were able to do at these meetings is meet all the other Jewish families who had individuals with disabilities. We didn't know anybody else. I mean, we knew people from schools and we knew people from programs, but here was all of us who shared some other commonality. So that was a wonderful bonus for this also. After several meetings, we needed 5 volunteers, 5 women and families who were going to move into the house, and Mitch and I decided it was time. There are a lot of families who choose for their adult children to stay at home. But what happens is, and Mitch and I thought this also, you think you're going to live forever, but you have to really think about your future and your child's future and say, if we're not around anymore, where is she going to be? So we decided we wanted to make sure that Jessica was securely in a wonderful house before it was done in an emergency placement, so that we could be part of every bit of that building of the house and gathering the community together. So Jewish clergy and the Jewish community were all part of building this house. I'm going to read one other excerpt. This one's about 3 minutes, and it talks about what it felt like a couple of months before Jessica moved out. Monday to Friday morning, or the title is Jess is Moving in 2 months. Monday to Friday morning, 6 a.m., roll out of bed, make lunch for our daughter, change her undergarments, dress her for the day, feed her breakfast, juice, vitamins, medications, comb her hair, brush teeth, and send her off to school by 7 a.m. Total care, assistance with all daily life schools. That is what Mitch and I did. We cared for Jess and assisted with every task that one needs for daily living, similar to the care of an infant or a toddler. At 25, Jess was moving into her own home. Hard as this may be to believe, in many respects, we were going to miss the daily care. Today, I changed all of Jessica's winter clothes, put them in boxes, brought out the summer clothing, and put them in Jessica's drawers. The reality was I wouldn't be doing this anymore. She will have staff, assistants who will provide the tasks of daily life. They will dress and feed Jessica, administer medications, and take care of her daily needs. And we will miss this too. We will long for the constant humming in our house. Jess can hum about 25 tunes, and no matter how gloomy the day, we always have music in our home. We will miss the persistent grabs for a hug, the cheek turned towards us, gesturing for a kiss, her hands reaching for a dog, and her constant smile and good cheer. What will I do for dinner every night? For 25 years, I have been feeding both Jess and myself at the same time. I've gotten pretty good at it. Now where will that skill go? And yes, I will miss that too. I have a monitor in our room. I listen and hear everything in Jessica's room every night. Do I still need the intercom? I guess not. In fact, now I may feel comfortable wearing earplugs to eradicate other house sounds from dogs. Previously, I didn't dare muffle any potential unusual sounds from the monitor. This leads me to think that my husband and I are always on call, even when sleeping, and that will change too. What will we do with that energy? I think we are well known in our neighborhood. We are the family with 3 dogs and 1 young singing lady in a wheelchair, and we walk. We walk a lot, and I will miss that as well. Jess is moving into a group home this summer. She's 25, and it's time. Time for Jess to learn to live as an adult woman who needs assistance. Time for my husband and I to begin to let go of the physical daily care. The group home is less than 2 miles from our home. We will be close. We will still be her guardians, still a presence in her daily life, still her loving parents, still on call, yet there will be enormous changes, many of which we haven't even thought of yet. The other day, I went to visit the house, which is almost complete, and was given Jessica's phone number. It was a peculiar feeling to enter Jessica's number into my cell phone. She will not share our phone number for the first time. I never even thought about Jessica having her own phone number. Our other 2 children are now young adults living in college dorms. We always anticipated, embraced, and expected their independence. We knew that if we did our job well, they would be able to live independently. We did not allow ourselves until a few years ago to consider that Jess was going to move as well. Was it denial? What were we thinking? Was it possible that we could be able to provide daily care forever? No, none of the above. It was just hard to accept that there would be a point when it was time to let Jess move it in with her peers, enjoy her own level of independence, and have her own phone number. Recently, we celebrated Mother's Day, and maybe that is why I'm thinking about all the ways my mothering will be different. Or maybe it's just getting close to moving date and reality is setting in. Things will be changing, and in many ways, we will miss our old life. So once Jessica moved into the group home, not only did a lot of her, did she expand, but our interaction with the Jewish community really grew. So in the next slide, you'll see Jessica is bowling with some of her friends, and these are individuals with and without disabilities, and all enjoying a sport that they love together. Jessica is the one looking at her feet. She tends to do that in a photo, but these are all her friends. In the next slide, you'll see Jessica, as we said before, loves music, and she goes to music therapy. And still, when you live in a group home, it doesn't mean you have to do what everyone else is doing. You do what you explore your own activities and what you like to do. And if anybody has any questions after about group home life, building a group home, writing the book, anything, please put it in the chat and I will be happy to answer at the end. The next slide shows about Temple Beth Tzedek. This is the Kesher Outstretched Arm program. And they would come to the house every single month and do a Havdalah service. This was at the end of Sabbath. So volunteers would come and they would sing, and Marty plays the piano, and we would have instruments, and it's a love fest. And so the Jewish community is very much involved in Jessica's house. We also have the lifelong learning Havdalah service through Zoom right now, and that is also through Temple Beth Tzedek. And so we've also have other temples who have come to our house. The next slide shows Rabbi Alex, and that is our rabbi, and he's the rabbi of Congregation Shir Shalom. And he's also been to the house with his family many times. And as you can see in the background, you know, we're all just, it's a home, it's a family home. And everybody is communicating, and we're celebrating Jewish holidays together and all types of events together. Next slide is a little bit about Miriam's Well activity, which is through the Jewish Federation, and Dr. Yonina Foster was coming once a month and doing really engaging activities. Right now, we do it through Zoom, and it's been very successful. The first little adorable boy you see over there is Griffin. That's my grandson, and we were playing with marionettes, and I think that might be Robin in the back. The next Miriam Well activity you see is Dr. Unina Foster, and she was reading with Jessica. And then the last one was last year, we did a Tu B'Shvat activity through Miriam's Well. Our families have now become one family. This was one of the goals when we were building the group home, was wouldn't it be great if all of us felt like we were really extended family? You can't really plan that, but it actually happened. We become so close. We've shared heartbreak, joys, holidays, meals, drinks, and when I walk in the house, I'm visiting all the women in the house, and likewise when the other families come in, they're visiting all the women, although we all know right now no one's visiting anybody because of the pandemic. So with the support from the Jewish community and inclusive activities and Jewish clergy and the devotion of family, we've been able to really make a successful home. People Inc. has been an incredible support, and I'm going to give a shout out to Kelly and the staff at Jessica's house, Kelly Special, because without them, I don't know what would happen with our daughters. I'm also going to give another little shout out to Be Fair to Direct Care, which is a promotion. It's an advocacy tagline. The people that work with Jessica and her housemates and all group homes everywhere are not paid a living wage. And they're basically keeping our children alive. And they're doing everything that, that needs to be done on a daily basis. So we are hopefully working on increasing a pay for the people who do so much. I can't see. Okay. Sorry, that was my timekeeper husband telling me what time it is. So I just want to give you a few things that have worked with the Jewish group home and some things that maybe have not worked. The family closeness and involvement, as I said, the holidays, the community engagement, and teaching willing staff all about Jewish holidays. Some things that haven't worked, this is kind of a cute story, being kosher. So we really haven't had staff member who's Jewish, and kosher is really hard for Jewish people, and let alone not having any background in it. And one day I walk in and one of the staff said to me, I just made the best kosher meal, shrimp and rice. So any of you who are kosher out there, no, shrimp's not kosher. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, shrimp's not kosher. And she keeps telling me, I have this new recipe book and it's fabulous. And I finally said to her, this is so nice of you. Shrimp's not kosher. Maybe go back and look at the book. And turns out the next day she brought in the book and she saw that on page 1, it was the shrimp meal. And the book was actually how to turn unkosher meals into kosher meals. So it was a cute occurrence and just a little explanation of it was very hard to be kosher for that reason, and also it's very expensive and hard to find the food. The other thing, as we said, is staff, as I was going to say, is staff turnover. It's very hard to keep staff, and that goes back to Be Fair to Direct Care and getting salary that connects with the amount of work that they're doing. So right now, where are we? Next slide shows Carly visiting Jessica. Carly's wearing a mask, and Jessica, of course, and Noah, my granddaughter, will not wear a mask. March of last year, we went to Florida. We got there March 1st, and there was this little virus going around that no one really knew anything about. By March 14th, I got a call that said, you probably should come home because I don't know if Jessica's even going to be able to stay in the group home. By the way, this was not from anybody in the group home, but it had us thinking we need to get home and you know and be there for Jess and for our other kids. So we did race home, and because I said of Kelly and the staff, Jessica was able to remain in the house all through the pandemic, and she just had her second vaccine on Monday. So happy for that. Next slide is some friends visiting Jessica during COVID. That is Cheryl and Ellen, and then that's me in the mask visiting. Next slide is Jessica's housemate, Lizzie, who would have been on this presentation with me. And she's holding the first prototype of the book. And you see they were both very excited that this book was actually coming out, and it's coming out in April. Next slide is Jessica in August, and the smile and love that you see in that photo describes Jessica. The next slide is a little bit about the blog. When the pandemic started, I started writing, and like the book, I started writing every single day, and it has turned into Vicky's Views. And every week I have one blog. Many times it's about Jessica, many times it's about the virus, or it's about everyday life. So if you want more information about the blog, I'd be happy to give it to you. And next page is the title cover of the book, which it is coming out in April or May. If you join the Raising Jess Story Facebook page, you'll get information as the book comes out. And then finally, this picture, the last picture, just says it all. These are two housemates, and the love that you see holding hands is we really have become a family. And so thank you, everybody. And I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions or chat or anything. I know we have to switch from Shira, and maybe there's no questions, and I'm okay with that. Hi.
What an incredible event this has been. Vicki, thank you so much for allowing us to listen and be a part of your moving and beautiful story.
Thank you.
Okay, so we did have one question in the chat that I saw from Deborah. If you could do anything differently with the knowledge that you now have, what would it be?
That's a big question.
It's a big question. I think it could also maybe tie in with advice, you know, that someone, since you've been through so much and have learned so much along this journey, what's something in particular possibly?
What I always tell families, especially of young families of children with disabilities, is to trust your gut, and it really goes throughout everything you do. I have met many families, and myself was the same, where professionals, maybe physicians, maybe people who had more education in a certain discipline would tell me or other family members about Jessica or about our child. And then I would know, that just doesn't sound right. And it's really hard as a parent to say, I don't think you're right. But in hindsight, and what I've learned is, oh no, you know your child better than anybody. Maybe you don't know the technical terms. And if you don't know the terms, and if people are talking with acronyms that are going up here, then you need to say, what does that mean? So that's one thing I learned. Group home life is another thing I learned. I really had no idea what to expect. And when Jessica was really young and I was growing, and everything I knew about group homes was what I knew from when I was a kid. And the reality of what a group home life is like was really eye-opening to all of us. And it was such a good move for Jessica. But I think that's something that I needed to open up my mind to. And I know a lot of families need to open up their mind to. What I've listened to my mother, you should write a book. A little bit of a sad story. My mom passed away in February and she had Alzheimer's. And so I knew that she was not going to be here for when the book was published. So my dad, every time I finished a chapter, even though it was raw, sent it to my dad and he read every chapter to her. And so she did hear the whole book.
Wow.
And she was able to appreciate the whole book. And even though she wasn't speaking very much at the end of the, I know I've told this story in a blog, but she got on the phone and she said in her halted way, I like your book. So like she was able to appreciate that she read the book. Maybe I would have started my book a little bit earlier and not waited till I retired or not thought of all the reasons I couldn't write the book.
So. Thank you. Another question from Leslie. You talked about middle school. Can you talk about her schooling up till then and perhaps after, what that was like?
Sure. She really did the whole gamut. We started in a very specialized program at Children's Hospital. It was before early intervention or before the federal government got behind educating babies with disabilities. So we would go to Children's Hospital and, we were basically, the moms were there and the babies. And from there, she, when she was 5, she went to a BOCES program, which is the Board of Cooperative Education. And basically it is a special education program, but it was in school districts, but not our school district. Jessica had a seizure condition and there were times in that she was in a town that was 20 minutes from us and we couldn't get there quickly. And plus the neighborhood people didn't know Jessica because she was in school in another town. So she went from there to full inclusion at Heim, and it took a lot of planning and it took years. I kept going to the school district saying, this year we're going to do it and let's plan. She did 4 years of total inclusion in middle school. And then in high school, she went back to a BOCES program, but it was in our regular high school, our local high school. And they did a reverse inclusion, which was great. It was high school kids who were really interested in working with individuals like Jessica, and her peers went into the classroom. So there was so much interaction, but it was people who really had an interest and wanted to do it. So she had a varied school life. And then after school, she went to a rehabilitation program. And that's where she is until the virus. Now she does Zoom. She does Zoom. Zoom therapies.
Another one from Patty. First, she said, "Hi, Vicki. So wonderful to see and hear you after all these years." Patty Greenberg.
Patty from camp. From camp. So it's only been 50 years.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You mentioned there are homes throughout the state. Are there any on Long Island that you know?
Oh, yeah. So in Buffalo, our group home is administered by People Inc., which is a Western New York and Rochester. It's the largest human service agency here. But in New York, all of New York, there's other human service agency, and there are group homes all across the country for families. And it's all different. So, Jessica needs a lot of care. So that's a group home where there's 24/7. There are people who do not need that kind of care, yet they're not really ready to live independently. So they're supported apartments where you have your own apartment, but people come in and make sure you're doing okay. Or you live with a roommate. So depending on the level of care you need, there are different options.
That's wonderful and so important for people to know.
Yeah, it's, you really, unless you need to know or you're in the field, you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I think just one last question. When your book does come out, which is just so exciting, congratulations.
Thank you.
Where will it be available? Where can we get it?
Okay, so it's with a publisher now, and I know it will be, and thank you for that question. I know it will be on Amazon, it will be Kindle, it will be Barnes and Noble, and it will be at other venues. I don't have the list of venues on me, but if you found out how to come here tonight, you will find out about the book, because I will make sure it's on Facebook and email and screaming from the rafters and all that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki, for your inspirational story. So many people have shared in the chat how inspirational this story has been to them. So many people. And thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. If you're interested in participating in another Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion event, visit jewishtogether.org/JDAM, and have a great night.
I just want to say, I have people maybe clicked off already. I really appreciate everyone who came and listened this evening, and for you guys, all the work that you did to make this happen, and to the Jewish Federation. And thank you, everybody. I really, really